There's something about baptisms that always brings out the fakest version of my family. You'd think a sweet church ceremony followed by lunch and laughter would be a time for peace, maybe even a chance to put the drama aside. But in my family, it's like everyone scrambles to look holy on the outside while sharpening knives under the table. I knew that going into my niece's baptism last Sunday. What I didn't expect was for my aunt to lean in halfway through the ceremony and whisper, with that syrupy venom only she could master, "It's sweet you showed up, even though nobody wanted you here." My name's Caleb. I'm 33, and if you met me at a coffee shop or in a meeting, you'd probably peg me as pretty average. I run my own property management business. Nothing flashy, but steady and growing. Real estate's been my world since I was 23, and I've built something I'm proud of. I don't walk around wearing my net worth, and I've learned that in family settings, especially my family, it's better if they think you're just doing okay. Not struggling, not rich, just invisible. Because once they get a whiff of success, it turns into a buffet of fake kindness, manipulative hints, and guilt-tripping faster than you can say trust fund. But I didn't grow up with money. Not even close. I was raised by my single mom, Janine, who worked double shifts to feed me and my younger sister, Naomi. We lived in a cramped two-bedroom apartment while my mom's siblings, my aunts and uncles, lived in the nice part of town with their manicured lawns and smug holiday newsletters. They didn't exactly offer help when we were struggling. They liked to invite us to family events, though, probably to feel good about themselves, giving the less fortunate a seat at the table. I remember once when I was 11, my cousin Jasmine gave me a sweater she'd outgrown for Christmas, still wrapped like it was new. My Aunt Diana beamed at her like she'd solved world hunger. "She insisted on giving it to you," she said, as if I should be honored. I said thank you, of course. I always did. That's how I was raised. Fast forward 20 years, and not much has changed in how they treat me. Or so they think. They still see the version of me who tagged along in hand-me-downs. Not the one who owns the mortgage on Jasmine's apartment complex. Not the one who secretly bought the house my Uncle Rick rents after it went into foreclosure 2 years ago. And definitely not the one who now holds 3 separate properties occupied by 3 very specific relatives, one of whom decided to whisper that little gem during my niece's baptism. But I'll get to that. The baptism was for Naomi's daughter, which is the only reason I showed up. Naomi's the only one I've ever felt truly connected to. Even when things got ugly in our family, and believe me, they did, she always had my back. We weren't just siblings, we were each other's safe place growing up. So when she asked me to be there for her daughter's big day, I didn't hesitate, even though I knew it meant walking into the lion's den of passive-aggressive smiles and judgmental glances. The church was decorated with white lilies and soft pastel banners. Naomi looked beautiful holding her daughter, and her husband, Marcus, stood beside her looking like he belonged on a Hallmark card. I kept to the back row, wearing a plain navy suit, quietly nodding at whoever offered me that tight-lipped smile of obligation. The whispers started before the second hymn. "Oh, look who finally showed up. Didn't even bring a gift? Probably thinks his presence is a present." I ignored it. I always do. But then Aunt Diana, the queen of sugar-coated cruelty, took the empty seat beside me halfway through the service. She didn't look at me at first, just sat there, eyes forward, hands folded like the image of piety. And then, with a slight turn of her head, she whispered it. "It's sweet you showed up, even though nobody wanted you here." There was no malice in her tone, just warmth. The kind of warmth you get from a radiator burning a hole in the wall. And she smiled, as if she'd just offered me a stick of gum. I turned to look at her, slowly. I didn't frown. I didn't react. I just smiled back. Because in that exact moment, I remembered the 3 envelopes sitting in my car, stamped and sealed, addressed to her, Uncle Rick, and Cousin Jasmine. Letters notifying them that their leases would not be renewed at the end of the month. Legally binding. No extensions. No more second chances. They didn't know I owned their homes. They'd never thought to ask who the LLC behind their properties was. Why would they? I was invisible. I was the kid with the hand-me-down sweater. I was the seat filler at holidays. I was the afterthought. But not anymore. While they were all busy playing happy family, acting like they were better, like I should be grateful for their scraps of attention, I'd been building. Quietly. Carefully. And now, they were about to find out what it felt like to be on the receiving end of someone else's decisions. The balance was shifting, and they had no idea. The rest of the ceremony passed in a blur. I heard maybe every third word. Naomi gave me a little smile from the front. She always knew when I was spiraling into my head, and I gave her a nod to show I was okay. But inside, I wasn't just okay. I was electric. Not angry. Not even vengeful. Just ready. Ready to stop being their scapegoat. Ready to stop pretending that I didn't see through their fake kindness and polite digs. Ready to reclaim the narrative. Lunch after the baptism was held in the community hall behind the church, and I swear the second I stepped inside, I could feel the temperature drop. Or maybe it was just the way everyone's eyes glanced over me and then moved on. Naomi came over with her baby and hugged me tight, and for a while I was fine just being Uncle Caleb. I took photos with her family, held the baby, even helped pass out drinks. But Diana wasn't done. She waited until Naomi stepped away and then wandered over to me, holding a plate of carrot cake like it was a peace offering. "Naomi really wanted you here," she said, with that same syrupy voice. "It's nice you came through for her. Even if, well, some of us were surprised." I kept my face neutral. "Surprised I showed up?" "Surprised you remembered," she said, then laughed like it was a joke. "I mean, you've been so busy. We weren't sure you even cared anymore." It wasn't a new tactic. Guilt. Guilt for not calling. Guilt for missing Easter. Guilt for not sending a birthday card to a cousin I haven't spoken to in a decade. They like to pretend I drifted away, that I just grew distant and cold. Not that they pushed me out of every conversation, mocked me behind my back, excluded me from every adult table. Not that they told me, to my face at a family dinner once, that I'd never be more than my mother's pity case. But sure, I just forgot to call. I looked at her, took the plate, and said, "You're right. I have been busy." She raised an eyebrow. With what? That's when it hit me. The timing. The look on her face. She didn't know. Not yet. And then I remembered. Her lease was up in exactly 34 days. I smiled again, but this time there was something behind it. "I guess you'll find out soon." She looked confused for half a second, then plastered on another fake grin and patted my arm like I was a toddler trying to sound grown-up. "Oh, Caleb, you always were so mysterious." And then she walked away. I stood there, staring at the cake I didn't want, heart pounding, not from nerves, but from anticipation. Because the letters were already in the mail. And this time, they'd be the ones wondering what happened. But it was just beginning. If you've ever watched a dam slowly crack, you know the sound it makes. That subtle, groaning creak, like something ancient trying to hold together under pressure that just won't quit. That was me for the last few years. A quiet crack here, a flex of the foundation there. And the day of my niece's baptism, that was the sound of water finally rushing through. After that whispered insult from Aunt Diana, I told myself to stay calm. I told myself the letters were already in the mail, that justice was already on its way. But I hadn't counted on how much worse things could get in just one afternoon, or how deep the rot really went. The post-baptism lunch moved from fake smiles to full-blown snubs in record time. People acted like I didn't exist, or worse, like I was some outsider crashing a private event. Aunt Diana floated around like the Pope at Easter, greeting guests and fake laughing at every comment, while casting occasional glances at me like I was the help. At one point, I was standing by the buffet table when Uncle Rick walked past me without a word, but I heard him mutter to his wife, "Didn't know they let strangers in the family room." Naomi saw me flinch. She always sees it, even when I try to hide it. She was coming over, baby in her arms, when her husband Marcus intercepted her and pulled her aside. I could only catch bits and pieces, something about keeping the peace and not letting Caleb make it about him. Make it about me? I had barely spoken a full sentence to anyone besides Naomi. But sure, I was the problem. I helped myself to a slice of the cake I didn't want, parked myself near the exit, and waited. I could have left then. I should have left then. But something in me, something stubborn and hurt and tired of swallowing everything, wanted to see. I wanted to see just how far they'd push it. Because part of me still held out hope that maybe, just maybe, I was imagining it. That it wasn't as bad as I'd felt for years. That part of me died about 20 minutes later. Everyone was gathered in a loose circle near the front of the hall. Naomi was holding her daughter, glowing with love and fatigue, and people were passing around cards and little baby gifts. I stayed back. I hadn't brought a gift, not because I didn't care, but because I had already given Naomi and Marcus something far bigger. A fully paid year's mortgage. Quietly. No fanfare. I'd done it through a third-party lender to avoid the drama, but Naomi knew. She cried when I told her a month ago, said it would give them breathing room after the baby, said she couldn't believe I would do something that kind. But I didn't want to thank you. I just wanted her to feel safe. She'd earned that. I was nursing my coffee when I heard someone say, "It's time for the family photo." Now, this was a thing in our family. Every major event ended with a staged photo of the core family. And by core, they meant everyone but me and my mom. It started after my mom passed away 5 years ago. Suddenly we stopped getting calls, stopped being included in planning. Slowly, my name disappeared from group texts. The family reunion accidentally changed locations 1 year, and I found out after it happened. It was always subtle, deniable. But the photo? That was the public execution. Still, I stood where I always did, off to the side, watching as they arranged themselves. Naomi was at the center, holding her daughter. Marcus stood tall beside her. Then the aunts, the uncles, the cousins, all smiling, all cozy. And then I saw it. Jasmine waved over her boyfriend, some guy I'd never even seen before, and pulled him into the group. He laughed awkwardly, clearly not sure he belonged, but everyone made room. And that's when Aunt Diana looked at me, standing there like an idiot with a paper cup in hand, and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Do you mind taking the picture, Caleb? You're good with phones, right?" I blinked. It wasn't the words. It was the way she said it. Like I was a waiter. Like my only value in that moment was pressing a button on a screen so she could immortalize their fake unity without me in it. Naomi looked horrified. She opened her mouth, but I held up a hand. I stepped forward, took her phone, and smiled as politely as I could manage. "Of course," I said, voice smooth as glass. "Wouldn't want to mess up the happy memory." I took the photo. I even took a few, angling it so everyone looked perfect. And then I handed the phone back to Diana, nodded, and walked straight out the side door into the parking lot. My hands were shaking, my chest tight. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, staring at the steering wheel, until I could breathe again. The last time I felt that small, I was 16. It was Christmas, and Uncle Rick gave out $50 bills to all the cousins. When I reached out my hand, he pulled the last one back and said, "Oh, sorry, Caleb. I think you already got yours earlier." I hadn't, but I nodded and said it was fine. Then I spent the rest of the day pretending not to care while everyone else talked about what they were going to buy. But this wasn't Christmas. This was my sister's daughter, and they were still treating me like I didn't belong. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying it all, the whisper from Diana, the comments, the look on Naomi's face when she realized what was happening. And then something happened that shattered the last piece of me that still wanted to believe it was just thoughtlessness. The next morning, Naomi called. She sounded off, tired, hesitant. "I just wanted to say thanks for coming," she said. "It really meant a lot." "Of course," I said. "I wouldn't have missed it." There was a pause. Then, "I heard you left early." I swallowed. "Yeah, just felt like I was in the way." "No," she said too fast. "No, you weren't." Look, I'm sorry about Aunt Diana. And the photo thing. That wasn't okay." I felt something loosen in my chest. "It's not your fault." "I know." "But," she hesitated. "Marcus and I had a fight about it." That caught me off guard. "A fight?" He said I was overreacting. That it wasn't a big deal. That you make things tense when you're around. That people feel like they have to walk on eggshells. I sat up straighter. "He said that." Naomi sighed. "He said you're too distant. That you show up, act cold, and then leave. And that maybe people would include you more if you made an effort." I didn't say anything. Because if I did, I would have broken something. "Caleb," she asked gently. "I've spent the last 10 years showing up," I said. "I come to every event I'm invited to. I bring gifts. I smile. I don't cause scenes. And somehow, it's still my fault I'm not included." I know, Caleb. That's why we fought." I told him he didn't get it. That he hasn't seen what they've done to you over the years. I clenched my jaw. He's not wrong. I am distant. But only because every time I got close, I got burned. There was silence. Then she said, "I wanted to tell you something. But I'm not sure how." "What is it?" "After the photo, after you left, Aunt Diana told Marcus that she doesn't think you should be invited to family events anymore." My stomach dropped. "She said you always make things about yourself. That you act like you're better than everyone. And that you undermine family unity." Her words. I couldn't speak. She said, "You only showed up to judge everyone. That you look down on us because you have money now. I let out a bitter laugh. They don't even know I. She guessed, Caleb. Or maybe she figured it out. She said she heard a rumor that you own some properties in town. She said it's suspicious how you keep things secret. My blood ran cold. They're planning a family barbecue next month, Naomi said softly. And she told Marcus not to tell you. I closed my eyes. There it was. The betrayal. The final, clean slice. Because now it wasn't just subtle digs or exclusion. Now they were actively trying to cut me out. To erase me. I thanked Naomi, told her I needed some time to think, and hung up. Then I walked into my office, pulled out the copies of the 3 letters I'd sent, and read them again. Diana had 60 days to vacate her home. Rick had 45. Jasmine, 30. They didn't know it yet, but their clock had already started ticking, and I hadn't even begun to show them what distance really looked like. I sat back in my chair, staring at the wall, and made a decision. It was time to stop playing defense. It was time to show them what it feels like to be the outsider. But I'd do it my way. Quiet. Legal. Irrefutable. The dam had cracked, and the flood was coming. Rock bottom isn't always a dramatic moment. Sometimes it's quieter. Sometimes it's just sitting alone in your living room, eating leftover Chinese food at midnight, watching the light on your phone blink without anyone actually calling. That was me 2 weeks after the baptism. No screaming match. No public breakdown. Just the dull, heavy ache of realizing that the people who were supposed to be your home never wanted you there to begin with. I wish I could say I didn't see it coming, that it blindsided me. But the truth? It had been building for years. The sideways comments. The family group chats I was mysteriously excluded from. The way holiday invites were always last minute or miscommunicated. I told myself for years that I was imagining it. That if I just kept being the bigger person, eventually they'd come around. That I just had to try harder. But the baptism ripped that illusion to shreds. And when Naomi told me about the barbecue, the one they were intentionally hiding from me, I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just stopped. I stopped checking my phone. I stopped showing up. I stopped pretending. And that's when everything started to shift. First, I let the silence settle. I didn't text Naomi for a few days. Not because I was mad at her, but because I needed space to hear myself think. I needed to sit with the hurt without immediately shoving it down to make everyone else comfortable. I worked during the day, managed my properties, took my meetings, went to the gym. But nights were the worst. That's when the thoughts came. The old voices. Maybe they're right. Maybe you are cold. Maybe you make people uncomfortable. Maybe you're the problem. I started writing things down, trying to sort through the noise. Not journaling, exactly, just dumping thoughts into a Word doc, like I was testifying to myself. I wrote down every slight I could remember, every moment that had made me feel small. Then I wrote down every success. Every time I'd helped someone, every bill I'd covered, every property I'd saved someone from losing. And slowly, something became clear. They didn't hate me because I failed. They hated me because I stopped needing them. And even worse, they knew I saw them. That I saw through the facade, the fake hugs, the obligatory invites. I wasn't playing the game anymore, and that made me dangerous. Still, knowing that didn't make the loneliness easier. The lowest point came one Thursday afternoon when I was walking through the property Jasmine rented. It was a 4-unit building I'd acquired during the pandemic, a distress sale that nobody else wanted to touch. I'd poured money and sweat into restoring it, not just to flip it, but to make it livable. I remembered painting the railings myself on a cold November morning, hands numb, because I couldn't afford to hire help back then. Now it was fully rented. Jasmine and her boyfriend lived in the nicest unit. She never once asked who owned it. Probably assumed it was some faceless company. That day, as I walked past her door to inspect a maintenance issue in Unit 3, I heard laughter from inside. Loud, carefree, familiar. Her voice. And then, my name. I paused. I didn't want to be that guy, but curiosity got the better of me. I stepped back and listened. Caleb always had a chip on his shoulder, she was saying. Even when we were kids. It's like he could never just take a joke. Always acted like he was better than us. Another voice, her boyfriend, I assumed, murmured something I couldn't make out. No, seriously, she continued. He's so smug. Like, yeah, congrats, you wear suits now. Doesn't mean you belong. I didn't wait to hear the rest. I left. Quietly. No confrontation. No knock on the door. I drove home with the windows down even though it was raining. I needed the cold. I needed to feel something. That night, I sat in the dark and stared at the ceiling for hours. I thought about my mom, about how she used to tell me, "Some people hate seeing you shine because they're still sitting in the dark." I used to think that was just a way to make me feel better after a hard day. But maybe she knew. Maybe she saw it all along. The next morning, I got up and decided to change everything. Not for revenge. For me. I started with my office. Literally. I'd been working out of a cramped unit in a strip mall for years. Not because I had to, but because it felt safe. Modest. Invisible. I signed a lease that week for a sleek, third-floor suite downtown. Glass walls, natural light, the works. I hired a receptionist. I rebranded my LLC into something clean and professional. Something that didn't sound like it was run out of a basement. Then I turned to my body. I stopped skipping meals. I hired a trainer 3 times a week. I started going to bed before midnight. I shaved the beard I'd been hiding behind. Not because I was vain, but because I needed to look in the mirror and see myself again. And then I turned to the business. For years, I'd kept things lean. Minimal staff. Quiet growth. But now I started expanding. I hired a property manager, an in-house bookkeeper. I updated my systems, created a website. I stopped apologizing for my success and started embracing it. And as I rebuilt, something else started happening, something I hadn't expected. People outside the family started noticing. Clients referred their friends. Old business contacts reached out. A local magazine ran a feature on up-and-coming property developers, and my name was included. It wasn't flashy, just a paragraph. But it felt like oxygen. I framed it and hung it on the new office wall. Naomi called a few times during this phase, and I always answered. But I didn't initiate. I needed her to know I still loved her, but I also needed her to see what it looked like when I stopped chasing people who only met me halfway. Then, about a month after the baptism, I got a voicemail from her. "Hey, Caleb. I don't know if you've heard, but Aunt Diana got your letter." She called Mom in tears. Said someone's trying to evict her, and it's all a big mistake. I didn't say anything. I didn't know what to say. Call me. I didn't call right away. Instead, I went for a walk. It was warm that day. Clear skies. I passed a kid selling lemonade on the corner and bought 2 cups. Gave him a 10. Sat on a park bench with both cups in hand, one getting warm, thinking about the boy I used to be. The one who took a sweater wrapped as a gift and said thank you. The one who said, "It's fine," even when it wasn't. The one who waited years for a family that never wanted to understand him. That boy deserved better. So I went home, called Naomi, and said what I'd been holding in for years. I sent the letters. She was quiet. I thought so. They don't know it's me. Not yet. But they will soon. A pause. Then why now? I exhaled. Because I'm tired, Naomi. I'm tired of waiting for them to change. I'm tired of being the outsider. And most of all, I'm tired of pretending I don't have the power to stop them from stepping on me. Another silence. Then she said, "I get it." And somehow, that meant everything. That night, I slept like a stone. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel vengeful. I felt clear. It wasn't about hurting them. It was about choosing me. Choosing the boy who'd been told he wasn't enough. The young man who built something out of nothing. The adult who was done being polite to people who weaponized kindness. They'd made their choices. Now it was my turn. The next morning, I drafted 3 new letters, formal notices of property ownership transfers, updating my LLC's public record so that my name appeared front and center. Then I sent each tenant a final warning. 30 days left. No exceptions. No appeals. And for the first time in years, I didn't second-guess myself. Let them squirm. Let them wonder. Because this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. And I was done hiding. Revenge is never just about anger. Not real revenge. Real revenge is a slow, deliberate chess game. You don't storm in with fireworks. You make your moves in silence, smiling, while your opponents still think they're winning. That's the mindset I slipped into after I reclaimed my voice, my confidence, and, most importantly, my leverage. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't reacting to what my family did. I was planning, and the board was already set. They just didn't know they were playing. It started with the letters. 3 certified envelopes had been sent out, giving Jasmine, Uncle Rick, and Aunt Diana each a formal 30-day notice to vacate their respective properties. But I wasn't naive enough to believe they'd quietly pack up and leave. These were people who believed in entitlement more than gravity. And the moment they realized the faceless LLC behind their leases had a very familiar face, the game would change. So I prepared. I met with my attorney, Claire, sharp as a scalpel and twice as clean-cut. We'd worked together for years, but this was the first time I'd brought her into something this personal. I need everything watertight, I told her. Ironclad. If they so much as breathe on a loophole, I want it shut before they exhale. She raised an eyebrow. Sounds like this one's close to home. It is. She nodded once and got to work. While she reviewed every contract, cross-checked every date, and ensured we'd dotted every legal I made a different kind of plan, one that would make it absolutely clear to my family that this wasn't a coincidence or a faceless corporation flexing its power. This was personal. This was me. I created a new property management website. Sleek. Elegant. The homepage featured photos of my most successful renovations, testimonials from tenants, and a short bio. Founder, Caleb J. Rivers. Right below it. Real estate isn't just about buildings. It's about the people who build them. Simple. Subtle. But enough for anyone nosy enough to look me up, and I knew Aunt Diana was practically a professional Facebook stalker, to realize that yes, Caleb owns the company. Yes, that Caleb. And yes, he owns your house. Next, I paid a quiet visit to each property. Not to make a scene, just to observe. Uncle Rick's place was first. A single-story rental tucked in a dated cul-de-sac. I'd bought it off-market after the prior landlord defaulted. Rick had no idea the property had changed hands. He still mailed rent checks to the same P.O. box, never thinking twice. His yard was a mess. Overgrown grass. Gutters stuffed with leaves. Paint peeling from the porch rails I'd paid to have fixed 6 months ago. He was late on utilities again. I knew, because I was now the one monitoring his usage. I took photos. Logged everything. Quiet documentation. Then Jasmine's place. She wasn't home, but her boyfriend was, shirtless, blasting music, drinking beer from a solo cup on the steps like it was a frat party. I didn't say a word. Just walked around the perimeter, inspected the siding, and made sure the new locks I'd installed were still intact. The unit looked fine. Clean even. But I noticed the for sale sign 2 houses down. And an idea started forming. Aunt Diana's house was last. She lived in a cozy 2-bedroom cottage that had once belonged to her late husband's family. When the estate fell into debt, she sold it, quietly, discreetly, hoping nobody would notice the family shame. I'd found it listed in a back corner real estate newsletter. Snapped it up for a fraction of its value. She never knew the buyer's name. Now I stood across the street in my car, watching her water her flowers like nothing was about to change. And the strange thing? I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel rage. I felt still, like everything in my life had finally lined up the way it was supposed to. I started gathering allies, not in the traditional sense, but the kind of people who'd support me when things inevitably went sideways. My tenant in Unit 3, Thomas, was a former contractor who'd become something of a handyman for me in exchange for reduced rent. I brought him into the loop quietly, explaining that the upstairs tenant, Jasmine, would be vacating soon, and I'd need help flipping the unit fast. No problem, boss, he said. Want me to change the locks when she's out? I smiled. Yeah, and maybe leave a note. I also called Linda, my bookkeeper, and asked her to review every payment history from the 3 tenants. Highlight anything irregular. Missed payments, late fees, bounced checks. I want a clean record if anyone tries to cry foul. She chuckled. This a business audit? Or are we declaring war? Bit of both. But the most important ally? Naomi. She hadn't picked a side yet, and I never asked her to. But she started drifting closer to me, one quiet conversation at a time. I heard Jasmine's flipping out, she said one day over coffee. She posted some vague nonsense on Facebook about fake landlords and money-hungry snakes. I raised an eyebrow. Did she tag me? No. But she tagged Marcus's cousin. You know, the one who still thinks we're in high school. Sounds about right. Naomi took a sip of her latte and lowered her voice. She's going to lose it when she finds out it's you. I didn't say anything. Then she added, You sure you're okay with this? Better than okay, I said. I'm ready. Because it wasn't just about the evictions anymore. It was about control. Reclaiming the years I'd spent trying to fit into a family that never saw me as one of their own. Rewriting the narrative they'd written without me. The one where I was always a footnote. Always the poor cousin. Always Janine's kid. The eviction dates crept closer. And right around the 10-day mark, things started to heat up. Uncle Rick was the first to call. I'd kept the company phone line public, but rarely answered it myself. This time I did. Yeah, this is Richard Thompson. I got this letter from some property company. It says I need to vacate by the 30th? That's correct, I said, voice neutral. What the hell is this? I've been living here for 7 years. Never missed rent. You can't just kick people out like this. You've actually been late 4 times in the last 18 months, Mr. Thompson. It's all documented. A beat of silence. Wait, who is this? Caleb Rivers. More silence. You, he said. You own the company? I do. You've got to be kidding me. I'm not. He scoffed. This is some kind of revenge thing, isn't it? Because we didn't invite you to the 4th of July cookout. I didn't even know there was a cookout. Well, that explains it. He hung up. No apology. No self-awareness. Just the entitlement of a man who couldn't imagine facing consequences. Jasmine's reaction came via Naomi. Apparently, she screamed when she got her final notice. Called Naomi sobbing. Claimed she was going to be homeless. Said the landlord tricked her. She doesn't know it's you yet, Naomi whispered. Let her stew. But Diana? Diana didn't call. She showed up. It was a Friday afternoon. I was working late, reviewing paperwork, when the building receptionist buzzed me. There's a woman here asking to see you. Says her name is Diana. No appointment. My heart jumped, but not with fear. Send her up. 2 minutes later, Aunt Diana stepped into my office, eyes sharp and red-rimmed. She looked like she'd aged 10 years in 2 weeks. She didn't sit. I got your letter. Good. I thought it was a scam. It's not. You're evicting me. I am. She stared at me, lips trembling. Why? You really have to ask? I've lived in that house for 9 years, Caleb. And I've been ignored by this family for 33. Her mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. I'm your aunt. And you made it clear nobody wanted me around. That was a joke. No, I said. It was a line in the sand. She blinked fast, trying to summon tears. I can't afford to move right now. I'm not working. I'm on a fixed. You should have thought of that before you made me feel like a guest at my own sister's daughter's baptism. She fell silent. Then, quietly, is there anything I can say to make you reconsider? I leaned forward. No. She stood there for a long moment. Then she nodded, turned, and walked out. No threats. No last words. Just silence. But I knew it wasn't over. Not yet. Because the final move, the one that would make everything crystal clear, that was coming. And when it did, they'd never forget who they tried to erase. Revenge doesn't echo like thunder. Not when it's done right. It doesn't announce itself with flashing lights or screaming matches. No, the most satisfying revenge is quiet. Just a single door closing behind you as the people who wronged you realize, too late, that the world has shifted, that they lost something they never thought they could lose. And that's exactly how mine played out. It started on a rainy Tuesday. The 30-day mark had arrived. I stood in front of Jasmine's unit just after 9 a.m., clipboard in hand, rain beating on my jacket. Thomas, my contractor-turned-ally, stood beside me. We didn't say much. We didn't have to. He handed me the key. I already changed the locks this morning, he said. Place is empty. Completely. Cleaned out. They left sometime over the weekend. Didn't even bother to call. I nodded. Smart. Means they knew they had no case. I stepped inside and took a breath. Jasmine's unit had always smelled like too much perfume and scented candles. Now it smelled like fresh paint and potential. She hadn't trashed the place, surprisingly, probably hoping to get her deposit back, though we both knew that wasn't happening. There were still some traces of her. A single earring left on the bathroom counter, a chipped mug in the sink, and a wrinkled photo of her and her boyfriend tucked behind the water heater. I didn't touch any of it, just smiled and moved on. That same day, I drove to Uncle Rick's place. He wasn't there when I arrived, though his rusted pickup was still in the driveway. The eviction notice had been posted 48 hours earlier, and my attorney had confirmed the legal deadline. 12 p.m. today. At 11:47, he pulled up. I watched him get out of the truck slowly, as if his legs were heavier than normal. His eyes were hollow, and the corners of his mouth were downturned in a way I'd never seen before. This wasn't the brash, condescending man who used to mock me for bringing boxed wine to Thanksgiving. This was someone who knew he was out of moves. He didn't say a word, just walked past me, into the house, and 20 minutes later came back out with 2 suitcases and a folded lawn chair. I didn't offer to help. He didn't ask. He walked to his truck, opened the tailgate, paused, and looked back at me. I'm gonna tell your mom you did this, he muttered, voice cracking. I didn't blink. She already knows. He drove off. I waited until the truck was gone, then walked up the porch steps and opened the door to what used to be his house. It smelled like cigarettes and old regret. Perfect. And then came Diana. Hers was the one I was prepared for, the one I expected to be dramatic, loud, messy. But instead, it was eerie. She vacated 2 days early, left the key under the mat and a typed note on the kitchen counter. Caleb, you win. You always had to win, didn't you? I hope you enjoy your empty house. I hope it keeps you warm at night. Aunt Diana. I read it twice, then fed it into the shredder back at my office. That house would be on the market within the week. But revenge wasn't just about the evictions. That was just the setup. The real move, the one they never saw coming, was the announcement. Because I'd waited. I'd kept my name off the LLC, off the lease documents, off the property records. Until now, 3 days after the last door closed, I updated all public filings. I switched the company name from Riverbend Property Holdings, LLC, to Rivers Family Management. I had a new logo made, a new website banner. Front and center, a photo of me, in a navy suit, smiling, confident, clean-shaven, with the tagline, "We believe in second chances, but not third." Then I sent out a press release. Nothing flashy, just a small announcement to the local real estate newswire. Rivers Family Management, a privately owned property firm based in the downtown district, has quietly expanded over the last 5 years, acquiring and restoring over a dozen distressed properties in the county. Founder Caleb Rivers, 33, is a lifelong resident committed to responsible ownership and equitable housing. It was enough to be seen, enough to be found, and they did. 2 days later, Naomi texted me a screenshot. Aunt Diana's Facebook post. I'm devastated. After years of loyalty and rent paid on time, my own nephew threw me out of my home just to prove a point. The cruelty runs deep. Be careful who you trust, even in your own blood. It had 3 likes. One comment, someone saying, "Yikes." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because 2 days later, Uncle Rick posted a GoFundMe link, claiming he was unjustly evicted and needed help restarting after betrayal. He didn't name me, but the comments made it obvious who he was talking about. None of them reached their goals. Jasmine, from what I heard through Naomi, had moved back in with her boyfriend's parents. She'd applied for a new apartment across town and listed her previous landlord, me, as a reference. I declined to comment, but it wasn't all fireworks and fallout. There were quiet moments, too, like the night Naomi came by my new condo, a place I'd been hesitant to show anyone, especially family, and brought takeout. We sat on my balcony overlooking the city, legs tucked under us, sharing fried rice and grilled chicken from styrofoam boxes. She didn't speak at first, just chewed, slowly, like she was turning something over in her mind. Then she said, "I think they hate you more now because you made it look easy." It wasn't. I know, but they'll never admit that. I looked at her. "Do you hate me for what I did?" She laughed softly. "Are you kidding? I wish I had half your guts. I didn't do it to be brave." "I know." She set down her chopsticks. "I just want to say thank you for always showing up, even when they didn't want you there." We didn't hug. We didn't cry. But something in that moment healed between us. A knot that had been tightening for years finally came undone. And as word spread, the rest of the family fell into a kind of awkward silence. No confrontations, no apologies, but no invitations either. I stopped being tagged in family photos, stopped receiving texts on birthdays. They let me fade out, the same way they tried to for years. Only this time, it was my choice. But here's the thing. I didn't feel lost. I felt light, like I'd finally stepped off a stage I never auditioned for. Business kept growing. The 3 newly vacated properties were renovated and filled within the month, with grateful tenants who paid on time and respected the space. I started mentoring a few younger guys trying to get into real estate, hosted monthly Q&As at the local business center. My name started circulating in the right rooms, not because I chased it, but because I earned it. And one afternoon, while I was having lunch in the city, I saw Diana sitting alone at a cafe window, hair tied back, wearing sunglasses, stirring her tea slowly, as if she had nowhere to be. She looked up, saw me, and for a moment, I thought she'd wave. But she didn't. She looked away. And you know what? That was enough. I didn't need an apology. Didn't need vindication. I had everything I needed. And they? They had to live with the echo of their own decisions. Every party they didn't invite me to, every smile that didn't reach their eyes, every whisper behind my back. That was their inheritance. As for me, I kept building, kept showing up for myself. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just taking back what they tried to steal. It's realizing they never had the power to define you in the first place. And now they never will. While they played family behind closed doors, I built an empire with the keys they handed me in silence. And now, I don't knock anymore.